All right, it says we're live. So, welcome everybody. This is our 9th episode of our Facebook Q&A live through the QC Rock Academy. I'm Greg. I'm the owner of the Rock Academy, and today we are excited to welcome a good friend of ours from a few years ago, and we'll do that whole backstory here in a bit. But we are proud to welcome Mr. Jeff Marino from Darius Rucker's band. So, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, how are you, Greg?
Awesome. So as we wait for some people to get in here, I'm going to go ahead and give a little backstory about how we got connected over the years. So it was I had to look it up because I couldn't remember. It was November of 2015. So over 4 years ago.
Further back. Oh. Yeah.
So yeah, November of 2015, you and Darius and the guys were here in town, and you were cool enough to invite a group of our students to come to the arena and hang out, and you gave everybody a huge backstage, behind-the-scenes tour, and kids got to go up on stage, check out your drum kit, check out the guitars, all that good stuff, and even got to go. The kids thought it was pretty cool because they got to go out on the tour bus. So,
well, that's right.
But you guys ended up spending.
It was a great day. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I think it was close to 2.5 hours you spent with the students that day. So, and then also to top it off, tickets for everybody to come to the show that night, which was the icing on the cake. So.
You gotta give credit to Darius for that. I didn't pay for them all.
Oh, yeah. So that's how we kind of got hooked up.
Darius. Yep.
And
who introduced it? Was it Sean? Was it Sean?
I think so. So yeah, Sean.
Maybe.
Yeah, Sean. I had met him 6 months prior to that, maybe. And he had done some clinics with us, and he kind of gave me the connection for you. So what do you got going? We're having a little bit of jumping issues with the audio and video, but I think we're gonna get through it good. But what you been up to while you've not been on the road or anything?
I'm trying to wait and pause to make sure that I let you finish. So we actually we were in the middle of our European tour when all of this Corona thing started to happen. We had actually done half of our dates when we were over there. We were scheduled to be over there until I want to say March 17th or March 18th, and we got halfway through our dates, and it seemed like every 4 or 5 hours, it got more serious and more updates and more changes and more this and that. And they went back and forth as to whether they were going to cancel shows, keep shows, or cancel or not. And ended up, we got out of, I actually don't remember where we were. Maybe we were in Amsterdam. And we ended up flying out of Dublin on the 13th, which I think was the first day of the travel ban. So, mostly glad to be home and safe and everybody home. And then we all sort of, for the most part, self-quarantined when we got home. And no one was sick, so that was good. That first 2 weeks, kids home, not touring, we were like everybody else, sort of hanging around trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
No homeschooling yet. Everybody was just sort of in a waiting pattern. A lot of family time, a lot of family games. We're playing a lot of Uno and cards and Sorry and things I haven't played in 25, 30 years, right? But having a lot of fun. Now that we're sort of, what are we, week 4 to week 5 of this thing, we've sort of settled into a routine. We don't have required homeschool in Tennessee. It's not required, so it won't count it towards a grade. But we're trying to do a little bit of stuff every day, and we're keeping up with music lessons for the kids and whatnot. And actually, I didn't play for probably 3 weeks, which I don't remember the last time I did that.
Wow.
So that was kind of a nice break. Yeah, I mean, I didn't play anything, no pad, no hands, no nothing.
No sticks in your hands at all.
But that changed. Yeah, no nothing. But that changed probably 2 weeks ago because you miss it, or at least I do. It's like if I don't do it, I don't feel complete. So I'm back to playing at least a little bit every day.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's for those of you that are joining us, if you have any questions, just type those in the chat below. Lexi says yo yo yo. So when people do have questions, I'll put that up on the screen, and that way you can see it well. And so yeah, Lexi, she's one of our longtime students. So if anybody has any questions,
Lexi's not scared of snakes.
Yeah, that's yeah, she got a snake wrapped around her.
Yeah, I'm not on board with all of that.
No, I'm not either. Get me away from that. So
yeah, no thanks.
Let's talk a little bit about your background. When did you start? And what I always like to ask people, what was 13-year-old Jeff listening to?
Well, 13 F. So 13 is 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah.
I had started, not unlike other, just through middle school band, the transition from middle school or elementary school to middle school. Same thing my kids do is sort of you just sign up for band, which I did, and then the band director sort of assigns you an instrument based on. I'm sure there's a lot of science to it, but my teacher, I wanted to play trumpet. It was the instrument I wanted to play. I have no idea why. Couldn't tell you. Okay. And she felt that my was strong and felt like I'd be a better drummer. So at that point, I was pretty much hooked. It didn't take long.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I don't really remember having a particular musical identity in middle school. Like I played drums. I took a lot of lessons. I was immersed in band and all that. But as far as listening to stuff and buying records, I don't really remember doing that until 8th or 9th grade. So in middle school, it would have been just top 40, Casey Kasem.
Yeah. Okay. So you didn't have a moment that you were like, this is what I want to do. I want to start playing drums.
I did at 14. And I mean, I was into it. I was playing it. I think, and people, I'm of an older previous generation. You couldn't go to your computer and buy all the music in the world and listen to all the music in the world. You had to drive to a record store and you had to buy a record to own records, right? Or you had to record it off the radio, which we did. You take your cassette tapes and put them in. So I don't think I was able to do music until I got into high school. So it was really just a mercy of the radio, a mercy of whatever was on time. But as far as that moment for me, I had my middle school band director at the time hired me and I think 2 or 3 other kids to do a gig at a country club.
Okay.
And I think it paid $50. Maybe my memory says 50, maybe 75 seems high. But $50 in 1987 or 86 was a ton of money.
Yeah, especially for a kid.
So to me, I felt I felt like I was loaded. It's like, you're going to pay me to play drums? I'm in. And that's literally my first memory of going, okay, I want to do this. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
It was a big moment for me.
Awesome. So, and then you went off.
I remember some of the Setlist, by the way, if you want to know. We played Girl from Ipanema and Girl from Ipanema on Broadway. I remember we played those two songs.
Nice. I wish there was
and that would have been 30.
Oh yeah. So yeah, there I got you. You kind of froze there for a second, but it was 30 some years ago.
Sorry about that.
So let's go to our first question. Lexi's back again. Your favorite place that you performed?
Can I give you a couple? It's tough to say one in particular.
Sure.
I'll give you my top three. Top three in no particular order. Red Rocks is a place that everybody, sort of throws out as their number one spot. And Red Rocks is definitely high on my list. The Gorge, which is in Washington, is probably the prettiest place and best place I think you can perform a live show. And then I want to throw in, let's see. Probably, I'd have to throw in Royal Albert Hall would have to be up there.
Okay.
That would round out my top three.
Nice. And you've played a lot of gigs, so.
Oh, yes. I've played a few.
Round ballpark number. How many gigs do you think you've played?
15,000.
Whew.
I don't know how many. 65. So there's, 10,000 probably. I know we tried to figure out how many shows we'd done with Darius at one point, which has been a year stretch, I guess. And even that number is hard to put together. Maybe 10,000, but I can't even count. I've been lucky. Starting with the gig I just mentioned when I was 14, I've been doing it professionally, regularly since I was 18. So that's 30 years now, almost. So that's a lot of shows.
That is a lot.
That's a lot of shows. I have to say, average of, so it's closer to 6,000.
Okay. Do you think you'd play that many shows still if you didn't have somebody to set up your drums every night?
No comment. Well, if they were set up and stayed there every night, sure.
Yeah, I'm saying set them up, tear them down every night. That's what
I did it for years.
Oh yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I did it for years, for sure. Loading them in the van I actually never had a van. I always had some terrible car. And when I went to school, I went to school in Berkeley, so I lived in Boston, and I gigged in there's 5 or 6 states, and I played 4 nights a week, rarely in the same state. So I definitely did my years of lugging it, loading in, pushing through the dinner crowd to get your drums to the stage, getting off at 1:30 and loading them up and driving home.
Yeah. It's a lot easier when you're in your 20s, huh?
Oh, good Lord, yes. 20s and hungry. I'm still hungry. I'm just old.
Yeah. Because, for me, I still do a lot of that. Not as much as we did in my 20s, but it's even worse now that I have kids, because they don't care that I was out playing rock and roll until 3 a.m. They still want, get up in the morning, get up, Daddy. I need breakfast. Let's play.
That's it. Yeah, I'm definitely insanely spoiled. Steve Castro is currently the guy that takes care of my drums. He's probably the best I've ever come across. Solid as they come. So I'm definitely spoiled. But same thing applies here. I've said for years, we could be on stage at bowl, get off stage at 11 o'clock, all on the plane, take a red eye home, and all I want to do is just go to sleep. And as I'm walking in the door, the kids are up and ready to go, and they're jumping on you, and they're like, "All right, let's go, Dad." So they don't care what you did the night. They want time, they want attention, and they've got energy.
Oh yeah. So how many kids you got?
I've got a senior in high school who unfortunately is having not the best senior semester that one gets to have.
Yeah.
She's making the most, and she's keeping her spirits up. Right now, she's just looking forward to fall in college and moving forward. And then I've got a seventh grader, a 13-year-old son.
Okay. So you had mentioned Berkeley. So let's talk about your Berkeley years for a little bit.
Some good years.
So
I'll tell you this. Just and this isn't a plug for Berkeley. It's not. It's just my story. But Berkeley had and still has a 5-week summer program. It's sort of a condensed mini semester. And I went between my junior year of high school and senior year of high school. I went to Berkeley. It's where I wanted to be. It's what I wanted to do. But this was a great way to try it out. So I went for that semester before my senior year of high school. And among many teachers that I met and relationships that I had, that semester ended up helping secure a scholarship. It also kind of gave me a feel for what the school was about. And I made a lot of relationships, great relationships with teachers that I'm still friends with 30-something years later. And the first two drummers, or the first two percussionists I met were Nathaniel Morton and Taku Hirano, who we ended up both also coming back and starting our freshman year together, and then we graduated together. And if you don't know those two guys, look them up because they're freaks with just ridiculous careers.
All right. I want to stop you real quick. We have a mutual friend we know.
Stanky, what's up?
So yeah, he helps us out at the school with the Sabian stuff, and he's actually from a small town.
There's nobody better.
He's from a small town about 20-25 minutes from here. So he's
got a little local connection.
He does. So yeah, he helps us out with all the Sabian stuff that we need here. So let's hop onto this one.
All right, sounds good.
Stephanie.
All right.
What do you do to stay up on your skills?
So that's probably well. I spent, like I said before, I did take, the first 2 weeks, I didn't do anything. I think just out of mental exhaustion. But if I'm taking a break and we're not touring, like I said, I'll play every day. I probably do an hour a day on the pad. Everybody's different. People can judge whatever. For me, when I do pad work, I usually have the television on. And it's usually ESPN, Sports Center, First Take, something like that. Because to me, pad is really just reps, just getting muscles moving and just keeping them moving. And I'll do that for, an hour every day at least. And then I try to get behind the kit for an hour a day. And it could be anything, like something specific. I could be just playing songs. Although I'd say probably 90% of the time it's both. I'll start off with some physical move. For me, at 47 and having toured as long as I have, I'm not going to break into any amazing new ground. Although not saying you can't. But for me, I'm working on ergonomics. I want to play easier. I want to be as easy on my body and my hands and my wrists as I can. So I typically will start on the kit with some sort of move. Maybe it's a molar move. Maybe it's something I'll watch Elich on YouTube. He seems to have his technique's insane. And I'll work on something for 20, 30 minutes, and then I'll play songs for another 30, 40 minutes.
Cool. And then we'll do this question from Lexi. One word you feel when you're on stage.
Fortunate.
That's a good one. You've been doing this for a long time and stayed at the top. So, and you get
longer
to do
than I
love.
deserve. Yeah, for sure. No, it's really, for me, anytime I'm on stage, whether it's with Darius or whether I'm, in town or doing anything else, just you sort of sit there and you're sort of humbled by the fact that you get to do what you want to do. So just very fortunate.
Yeah. Especially when you do things like you got those two drum heads behind you. Like when you get to play gigs like that.
Yeah, those are some good.
So I don't know if people can really see it. It's an Indy 500 and a Super.
Actually, Daytona 500.
Okay.
Believe it or not, those are both from 2020, and those might be, could go down as some of the last major events in 2020. That's the Super Bowl that we did this year in Miami, and then the Daytona 500, which is what, February, late January. I can't remember my dates, but those are both from 2020. So,
wow.
Fortunate to have got things. Yeah.
Very cool.
Hats off to Jason Parkin, our production manager, who always gets really killer heads for these events.
So we'll continue. You went to Berkeley. Once you got done at Berkeley, did you go straight to Nashville?
So I did. Basically, I did. I had chosen Nashville as a location for me. I grew up in Indiana, so Nashville just had a feel to how I grew up. LA didn't feel comfortable to me. Just at the time, 22 years old, 20, whatever. And Nashville just felt more like where I grew up. So I picked it. I was all set to go. And then I got asked to do, Berkeley has what's called the Yo Team Ensemble, which is, it's sort of their top dog ensemble, sort of like the one at North Texas. And I actually was ready to go. I had my car packed, my drums, my clothes, everything was in there. And the Yo Team got called to go do a gig. So we flew out to Palm Springs and to show some corporate show for Berkeley with just a ridiculous group of kids. I'm sure I was the least talented of the 20-some kids in that ensemble. And literally we landed at Logan Airport. I took a cab to my apartment, which I'd already moved out of, and my stuff was sitting in my car waiting for me, and drove to Nashville.
Wow.
1995, May, I think. Yeah, May of 95.
That's when I graduated high school.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's just a few years ahead of me. Yeah.
Just a few years. It's not too bad. It's I'm 15 years ahead of some of the kids I'm meeting here in Nashville now who are really great. Well, I was reading ahead. I just saw a question.
Oh, let's see. I think it was this one from Steve.
Yeah. Impacted you or made you reflect on my life? And tough question. I lost my dad last year, so anytime I get here, my first thing that goes to people that impacted my life certainly would be my dad, that had the biggest impact on me. His belief allowed me to be a musician. So he knew nothing of the industry. Wasn't necessarily a creative guy, but certainly supported me from every step along the way. So first credit to him. Reading that question, the first thing that comes to mind for me is, Neil, which I don't think there's a drummer that's untouched by Neil Peart. I think if you weren't touched by him, I don't know. his impact will probably never be. I don't think he'll ever run out of influence for everybody. So he's the first one to come to mind. For me, I remember where I was when I heard about Prince, which was crushing, and Thomas was beyond sad. Michael Jackson, the list, it goes on and on. I remember when Jeff Porcaro passed away. It was, 15 years now, 20 years. My math is struggling.
That's 20.
Probably. Yeah, I think I was maybe at Berkeley when that happened.
Man, maybe longer than that.
So it could be. Jeez. I'd have to look that one up. I remember hearing it on the radio.
Because 20 years ago was the year 2000. So
yeah, you're right. It was early 90s. Yeah.
So
I think when you get to be my age, I think you get to be 47 and you want to say everything was 20 years ago until you realize that I'd already had a family 20 years ago, which to me is mind. So I think I got married 20 years ago. But I remember when I think actually the first time I really feel the two that hit me that I could really feel like is John Lennon. Even though I was really young, I remember that on the radio, and that for some reason had an effect on me emotionally. And then I was in the airport at Logan Airport, flying home to Indiana from Berkeley, and listening to the radio, and they announced that Freddie Mercury passed. And whatever radio station I was on went directly from the news into the song "The Show Must Go On."
Oh wow!
Never forget that moment.
Yeah, because the day that Freddie died was the same day that Eric Carr from Kiss passed away. I think
I didn't.
Yeah, Eric Carr passed away that morning, and then once Freddie died, it totally overshadowed it. So
for sure.
So Steve wanted to ask that question. His dad actually just passed away.
Sorry to hear that, Steve. Year. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know that anyone truly gets over losing a parent. At least I haven't yet, and I don't think I will.
Yeah. So, so you moved to Nashville. What was your first break?
Okay, so funny story. So I moved to Nashville. I knew one person, Chad Hunley. I hope he's on here. I know he's on Facebook. Who I had met. I was in the Indianapolis Youth Symphony Orchestra. He was in the Nashville Symphony Orchestra, and we did a what do you call it? An exchange program. So we had met in high school, and we were roommates at Berkeley. And he is to this day probably the most talented drummer I've ever come across. But he was from Nashville. He lived in Nashville, and he was teaching at a music store, Chef's Music, here in Franklin, Tennessee. And I don't remember where the call came from. The day I moved to town, I'm moving into my apartment, and I don't know. I don't remember where it came from. I got a call to audition for Brenda Lee, which you'd have to look in your country music history if you don't know who Brenda Lee is. She's been around a long time.
I'm listening. Just hold on a second.
But go ahead.
My computer came unplugged and it was saying low power.
Oops, that's no good. I got a call to do that audition. I have no idea. To this day, I can't remember how I got it. I remember it was literally, I was like undoing boxes. And so, of course, I dropped everything and I ran over there. And they wanted you to audition. There was no prep. There's no learning songs. It was kind of by the seat of your pants thing. And I didn't get it. I'm not surprised I didn't get it. So that was sort of my first experience in Nashville. I'm not gonna say it was my first break. I don't think maybe for some people there are moments, a singular moment. But for me, I don't think of Nashville that I got a break. I feel like Nashville to me was a series of experiences and really building of relationships. I think I started working within 6 months, doing local stuff and getting in with local guys. There was a guy named Byron House, who's an incredibly accomplished bass player. He was in Robert Plant's band recently. Linda Ronstadt, everybody recorded with everybody. Great recording guy, and he took a chance on me early with some projects that sort of helped. And then through him, I met another couple people, and you meet people. And really, to me, I know Rich Redmond has talked about this, and there's no way to quantify it other than in the music business, you have to make relationships first. You have to become friends with people to genuinely be friends with people that are in the business, and you have to build those relationships. And then through those relationships, more and more people will give you a chance. Mm-hmm. So really, it was a series of events. I kind of was working all the time, and the gigs got bigger, and they got bigger, and the artists got bigger, to the point that I think I think my first real tour, full-blown touring thing in Nashville was an artist named Darius, who had a few pretty big hits. And then on that tour, I met all the guys in McGraw's band and Faith Hill's band and Martina McBride's band. And the band leader for Martina McBride, Jim Medlin, who's still a good friend. For some reason, I piqued his interest, and he fought for me for a few things. And he's the reason I'm a band leader and a musical director. He got me my first musical director, and that's still what I do now. I do it for Darius, and I do it for countless artists on top of Darius. So Jim, he's the reason to do that, honestly.
So what would you say, as music director, people might not know what that really means? What is your job as music director?
So music director, well, band leader is probably, it depends on where you're from. If you're in LA, it's musical director. If you're in Nashville, it's band leader, but it's essentially the same thing. There's a ton of stuff to it. Part of it's just logistics. Part of it is the tour manager doesn't want to call 7 people or 6 people and say, do this, be here, do that, whatever. So there's a logistical thing where I'm the logistic contact for the band. But mostly it's just being in charge of whatever's happening on stage. It's not unlike being the band director for, an orchestra, or the conductor for an orchestra, or band director for a bigger band, where you're just a point person that sort of decisions or tries to make the decisions that make the most sense for the band to play. Orchestration, instruments, arrangements. For lack of a better time, you're sort of the producer for the live product or product.
Okay. So does that include, do you take care of the set list for the night too?
That artist to artist. Some artists, absolutely, you do all of it. Some artists, no. Darius and I, depends on the situation of the gig. Sometimes he's very involved and has a whole, hey, Jeff, let's do this. And sometimes he's like, we put together something. So it depends on the situation. And it's very different. I've had artists that are super hyper involved in every single minute detail on stage. And then I've had artists that let you run with it and then make tweaks at the end.
Okay. So I'm sure
that's fair to say. I was going to say that's fair to say for the musical director job or band leader job in general. Some artists you work with, your role is different depending upon how involved they are.
Okay. So you and him like to go golfing all the time. So is that when you talk about all that stuff? Is when you're on the course?
I mean, if you say every day is a lot of golf, then a lot of golf. I'll be honest. We've probably had 4 musical conversations on the golf course over the last 12 years.
Wow. That's where a lot of people like
Yeah,
to do their
but
business.
that's the point of playing on tour. Yeah, not for us. It's where we're mostly for him, but for us, it's where we're getting away from business.
Ah.
Not everyone plays golf, but if you do, golf is it's a great mental escape. It's such a hard game that if you're thinking about anything else, you're not going to be very good at it.
Mm-hmm. I don't play golf.
So, yeah, it's the dumbest, hardest game, and it's the best, most rewarding. Exact same 4 hours you're out there, you'll experience every emotion.
All right, let's get to this one. I'm sure you get this one quite a bit.
But yeah, we don't. How mad is what he's called Hoody? I don't think he gets mad. He technically isn't who, but it sort of became the default just because of the name became the default.
Yeah.
I will say that I want to quote him. I don't want to misquote, so I don't want to get in trouble. But what I've heard him say several times is something along the lines of, "Look, when people stop calling me Hoody or asking or saying something about Hoody, that's the day that people aren't, paying attention anymore."
Yeah.
And that's not a day he wants. So he's pretty darn good about always responding positively, because look, he wants people to still know who he is and be and buy songs, buy tickets.
Yeah.
Personally, I will say there's a respectful and a non-respectful way to call him Hoody, and I've seen both.
When you just start yelling his name, that's probably not the best way.
Yeah, I mean, people. We're in a society where, with cell phones and social media and cameras and pictures and whatnot, people could be super disrespectful, and he'll never be anything but professional and polite. But nobody really likes being bombarded in a rude manner. So, and for the most people are respectful, but there always are there are occasions where people are not.
Yeah. Yeah, but my band, we actually we opened up for them. I want to say it was summer of 2004. They played in Davenport here, and my band got to open up for him. So I actually he was playing football out in the outfield because it was at the minor league baseball stadium. So there was a bunch of us just playing catch with the football in the outfield that afternoon. So, but that was a fun show. So we've been going a good.
The only one of football video, I think.
Yes, Scott remembers it was 2004. So my memory was right.
There you go.
So we'll get going here shortly. We've been going for a good 40 minutes already. So let's just talk about what kind of gear you're playing these days.
There we go. So gear-wise, you brought up before how spoiled, that I have a tech, and I'm the first person to say how spoiled I am to have a great tech. But even when it comes to just because Stanky's in here, let's talk Sabian. So Sabian, man, I've been playing Sabian since 1986, something like that. Boy, I'm old. And they've been great. I can't narrow it down to any one thing because, as I will tell you, there's a variety of things in my vault. And I'm also super fortunate. There's some things I'll use in the studio, which right now I just can't be more excited about the artisan stuff in the studio. And then lots of combinations. There's HH, there's AA, there's AAX. I don't have a whole lot of artisan stuff on tour, but I have been using the 15-inch artisan hats on tour quite a bit. Killer gear. I will say my love for Sabian started. I remember when I was in high school, I had a non-Sabian cymbal that I liked, and it was a 16-inch crash, and I dug it, and I wanted to get another one. I can't remember if I broke it or I needed to or I wanted to, and I got it, and it sounded entirely different than the one I had at home. It could not have been more different, and that always bugged me. So I remember trying out Sabian shortly after that, and for me, the consistency of quality of them was apparent when I was a 16-year-old kid, saving for 6 months to buy one cymbal.
Yeah.
Stuck with me, and their quality now, insanely good. And they seem to come out with they seem to be trying to push the envelope and come up with some new great stuff every year.
Yeah.
And it's always fun to see who got up their sleeves. So they've been great. Vic Firth, I'm using a 5B Extreme 99% of the time these days. Same for consistency with Vic Firth is radical. It's always so good. And they've got a bunch of fun other stuff. But I've been using Vic Firth ever since the SD1 that we got for orchestral band in middle school. Man, I wish I still had my original SD1s. They're probably in a box somewhere in the attic. But Vic Firth's been shout out to Joe and everybody there. That's been great for so many years. And then Pearl drums have just been incredibly good to me, but just their gear. I've got a Pure Reference kit on the road. That's please feel free to my site because it's probably one of the best looking kits you'll see. There's some pictures out there. It's a piano black with an ivory stripe. It's my favorite tour kit that I've had my entire career.
Nice.
And it's just been really, it sounds unbelievable. And not everybody's probably aware of what backline is, but what backline is when you can't take your truck and you can't take your own gear, you've got to the venue rent locally for you to play. And one of the things that my front house guy, my tech, and all of us out there have noticed more than anything else is everywhere we go, the backline kits sound unbelievable. Every sort of series of kit, Masters Custom, Reference Pure, we've had everything out there, and they all sound great. So we've been thrilled with the level of quality you get out of every Pearl kit.
Yeah,
and they're insane. Snare drums are blowing me away. If I could, there's probably 30 snare drums I would love to get. They won't give them all to me, unfortunately. But my shopping list of snare drums from Pearl is longer than my arm. There's just so many great things. And they just came out with a whole bunch of new stuff. There's some amazing new wood snare drums they're coming out with that I think have just hit the market. And there's 7 or so that I really want. So I'm hoping to maybe get my hands on one in the next few months. So there you go. And then, Remo Ambassador is to me Coca-Cola. No offense to Pepsi or RC, but if there's a standard, it's a Remo Ambassador head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I got my dream kit was always a Pearl kit. Like from when I started playing, and I think it was the summer of '99.
Yeah.
I got my tax return back from my job at the local hardware store. Or you're an Indiana guy. You don't probably know what Menards is, right? So
sure.
Yeah, so I worked at Menards in high school, and I saved up my tax return, and I was able to buy my dream Pearl kit. and that's still my
That's
go-to
awesome.
kit. It's a Prestige Session series, and it's been my go-to kit for almost every gig I've played in the last 20 years, and still sounds amazing.
I love that. I got to tell you, if we have time, I got to tell the boys at Pearl this story several times. I don't remember the year, but there was a Pearl always had this just incredibly sexy drum ads when we were kids in Modern Drummer, and still do. But they put out Omar, and it was a bird's eye maple, like a natural bird's eye maple kit, and it was probably the best looking drum set I've ever seen in my life. And I literally drooled over that thing, and still do. I haven't seen one in a long time, but it was just the prettiest finish and the best ad. Actually, I wish I could find it. I'm going to look for it today. Find that ad. If I have, I'm going to email the guys at Pearl to find it, and I'm going to put it up on my Instagram today. Of just the drum set that just, man, it just I couldn't believe there was such a good looking instrument out there. Always an Omar fan, obviously. But I'm going to find that picture and put it on Instagram today if I can.
I have when I ordered that drum kit in '99, I didn't want the regular snare drum that would have came with it, so I ordered the Omar Hakim signature snare. It's a 13-inch wood.
You have
snare.
One?
Yeah, I have the Omar Hakim snare.
Oh man,
I haven't. I probably haven't used that thing in 10 years.
Don't ever get rid of it.
It's just sitting in a case. So, but yeah,
as it should.
But just a beautiful drum.
Or on a shelf. Yeah. Oh, insane.
So, yeah, we're at about 45 minutes.
If you're not. Oh, there we are. 47 minutes. I forgot. I do want to say the guys at Big Fat Snare Drum, if you haven't checked their stuff out, they've got some really cool stuff. Are you hip to that stuff, Greg?
I've messed with it when I was out at NAMM like 2 years ago, but I haven't really played with one on my own.
Mm-hmm. They're super versatile with what's going on in today's music with all the loops. Yeah. And when you're trying to recreate some of the loop sounds with snare drums live, I typically have 2 snare drums in my live setup, but when you add the Big Fat Snare Drums, I can make those 2 snare drums sound like 6 or 7, and it takes about 2 seconds to throw it on there. They've got some with the tambourine on them. There's a lot of options. It just gives you a lot more tools without changing drums, which is not always feasible in the middle of the show.
Yeah, I got to check those out a little bit more. Just and when
great muffles, and if you're playing small rooms.
Oh, I kind of lost your audio there.
Long pause.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I kind of lost your audio for a minute.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I got you back. So, but yeah, that kind of covers a bunch of stuff.
Go.
So, we can wrap this thing up, and thank everybody for watching and submitting in some questions. It was great to talk with Jeff again. We'll have the replay of this up on our YouTube page probably in a couple hours. So if you want to watch it again later, if you missed a part of it, whatnot, as you'll see at the bottom of the screen, if you want to help support the Rock Academy and our programs, there's Venmo or PayPal. Every dollar helps keeping this place going. So thank you all for watching. I'm going to end the broadcast, Jeff, but if you want to just hang on for a minute, we can chat when we're done here. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again.
See you.
We have another one of these on Friday, so I'll be announcing who that will be with, and we'll see you all then. Thanks a lot.